This isn't a story about a car, not really. It's about a new kind of passenger, one that doesn't sit in the seat, but lives in the wires, the silicon, the invisible streams of code flowing like digital blood. It sees a world we can't. It makes decisions in a blink of span of time so short it has no meaning in human experience. And it's learning to drive, not just on our roads, but through the beautiful, terrifying chaos of our very existence. Here's a strange thought, one that will change how you see the street outside your window. That traffic light, the faded white lines on the asphalt, the kid on the bicycle wobbling just a bit, the pedestrian glancing at their phone before stepping off the curb. All of it is just data. Raw, screaming, unorganized information. For us, it's a scene, a moment, a memory. For the new mind behind the wheel of a self-driving car, it's a mathematical universe, cold and precise and breathtakingly complex. It's calculating probabilities at a speed that would make any human brain short-circuit. The distance to the slowing truck, 47.3 meters, closing at 2.1 meters per second. The 95.7% chance a cyclist will stay in the lane. The 0.3% chance that a ball will bounce into the street, followed by a child. It's playing a trillion games of chess every single second with reality itself, and it's playing to win. But what does winning even look like? That's the question we're all trying to answer. We are, right now, in this very moment, witnessing the greatest handoff in the history of transportation. For over a century, the equation was beautifully simple. Human eyes, human hands, human judgment, flawed, emotional, brilliant, and unpredictable. The driver was the undisputed master of the machine. Now, we are quietly, steadily, teaching a machine to see, and what it sees is utterly alien. Its world isn't made of objects and faces and intentions, but of Lidar point clouds, millions of laser dots painting a ghostly 3D skeleton of everything. It's made of radar signatures, pings that measure speed with relentless accuracy. It's built from convolutional neural networks, layers of artificial neurons firing in patterns it taught itself. It doesn't recognize a tree in the way you and I do, with all the poetry that brings. It recognizes a pattern of vertical edges with a specific texture and reflectivity, a statistical cluster that matches its immense training data for the label tree. It's a different kind of consciousness, one built not on experience and emotion, but on pure, relentless logic and statistics. And we're inviting it into our daily commute, our school runs, our road trips. We are handing it the keys. To understand how we got here, to this precipice of a new age, we have to rewind the tape. The dream of the self-driving car isn't new. It's been a shimmering staple of science fiction for generations, a symbol of a sleek, effortless future. But for decades, the reality was clunky, rigid, and hopelessly fragile. Early prototypes were like overgrown, confused insects. They followed pre-programmed rules in sterile, controlled environments. If obstacle detected within 5 meters, then stop. The real world, the world you and I live in, is never that polite. It is a glorious, messy explosion of unpredictability. In construction cones that appear overnight, erratic jaywalkers, confusing detour signs plastered over old ones, blinding rainstorms that turn the road into a mirrored mystery, the sudden glare of a low winter sun. The old rules shattered against the complexity of life. The breakthrough, the silent catalyst that changed everything, wasn't a better camera or a faster computer chip. It was a revolution in thought, a new way of thinking called machine learning. We stopped trying to be gods, trying to write down every single possible rule for driving a car in a universe of infinite variables. Instead, we became humble teachers. We showed the AI, the game film, mountains of it. We fed it millions upon millions of hours of real driving footage, from dash cams, from test vehicles, from every corner of the globe. We said, here, watch, learn, and learn it did. The AI began to find patterns, correlations, subtle clues that no human programmer could ever sit down and articulate in code. It learned the subtle, almost imperceptible body language of a pedestrian who's distracted, phone in hand, versus one who's focused and waiting for the bus. It learned the strange, drifting, weightless dance of a plastic bag caught in an updraft, distinguishing its harmless flutter from the hard, dangerous obstacle of a fallen tree branch. It didn't just memorize a map of the roads. It intuited the physics. It learned the social contracts, the unwritten rules of the asphalt. It learned that sometimes you have to inch forward to be seen, to communicate your intention. It learned the language of the road, not from a dictionary, but from immersion. This is where it gets truly mind-blowing. These systems don't just react. They don't just drive. They generate, moment by moment, a living, breathing, predictive model of their entire surroundings. They are, in a very real sense, predicting the future, not in a psychic, crystal ball sense, but in a hyper-rational statistical one. They've run thousands, millions of micro-simulations in a fraction of a second. If I apply the brakes at this precise torque now, what is the predicted trajectory of my vehicle and every vehicle around me? If I signal and begin a lane change, How will the car 3 spots ahead likely react based on the behavior of millions of similar drivers in my database? They are constantly dreaming up potential futures, ghost stories of what could happen, and choosing the safest, smoothest path through that maze of possibilities. It's a form of digital clairvoyance, and when it works, when it's humming along perfectly, it's seamless, invisible. You might not even notice anything is different. But the mental gymnastics happening under the hood, in the trunk, in the cloud servers it might be whispering to, are nothing short of extreme athletics for an artificial mind. Now, let's talk about the raw facts, the nuts and bolts of this quiet revolution happening all around us. Today's most advanced vehicles, the ones you might already see on the streets of Phoenix or San Francisco, can navigate complex urban grids, dense with double-parked cars and darting scooters. They can handle the aggressive, high-speed ballet of a Los Angeles highway merge at 70 miles per hour. They can come to a smooth, safe stop for a dog running into the road, calculating the stopping distance down to the centimeter. This is not theory. This is now. They achieve this with a symphony of sensors, each playing a different part in the orchestra. Cameras provide rich color and detail, reading street signs and traffic lights. Radar pierces through fog and rain, measuring the speed and distance of objects with unwavering focus. And then there's Lidar. It spins, often unseen, emitting lasers that paint the world in a precise 3D mesh of points, giving the car a superhuman bat-like sense of depth and shape, creating a real-time map that is far more accurate than anything our 2 eyes can provide. But the hardware is just the body. The software, the AI that interprets this constant, roaring flood of data, is where the soul lives. It's a form of modern artificial intelligence so advanced, so flexible, that its siblings can generate human-like text in any language, compose music, diagnose diseases from medical scans, and now pilot to tons of metal and plastic with an eerie, almost unsettling precision. This is the same fundamental technology, just applied to a different sense, the sense of motion, of spatial survival. But here's the wild part, the part that feels like science fiction crackling into fact right before our eyes. This technology, this brain we've built to navigate, isn't staying in the car. The same core intelligence that is learning to navigate the tangled veins of our cities is finding its way into the very muscle and bone of our world. It's in the vast, humming warehouses where robots no longer move on rigid preset paths. Now, they use cameras and AI to identify 1,000 different objects, learning the most efficient gentle grip for a plush teddy bear versus a slippery bottle of detergent. They sort and pick with a speed and accuracy that redefines the word logistics. It's on the farm, where AI-powered tractors and drones don't just blanket fields with chemicals. They scan every individual plant. They can identify a weed from a crop seedling with near-perfect accuracy, and then, with a sniper's precision, spray a tiny microdose of herbicide right on the weed, leaving the food crop utterly untouched. It's a revolution in stewardship of the land. It's in the hospitals, where algorithms can scan thousands of mammograms or retina images, detecting faint, early signs of disease patterns too subtle for even the most trained human eye to consistently catch. They are becoming a partner in diagnosis, a second set of eyes that never gets tired. Yet, for all the AW, for all the promise, there is a deep and necessary mystery at the heart of this, a tension we can't ignore, no matter how smooth the ride becomes. How does it really make a decision? We can see the inputs, the Lidar point cloud, the camera feed, and we can see the outputs. The car turns a wheel left, it slows down. But the why, the chain of logic inside the deep neural network, sometimes happens in a proverbial black box. Layers of calculation so vast, so interwoven, that even its own engineers can't always trace the exact synaptic path from question to answer. We call this the explainability problem. Think about it. We've created a driver that can't always pull over and explain its reasoning in a way we intuitively understand. It can give a statistical answer, a pedestrian trajectory, probability exceeded threshold, but not a narrative one. This leads us directly to the million-dollar questions. The ethical puzzles we're only just beginning to untangle, and they are some of the hardest questions we've ever faced. What happens in that split-second, unavoidable moment of crisis? The classic philosophical dilemma, the trolley problem, has escaped the philosophy classroom and landed in the engineering lab. It is no longer an abstract exercise. Programmers, ethicists, and regulators are grappling with it right now. If a collision is truly inevitable, how should the car's intelligence choose? Does it prioritize the safety of its passengers above all else, as a human driver's instinct might? Or does it attempt to minimize total harm, a utilitarian calculation that might mean swerving into a barrier to avoid a school bus, even if that puts its own riders at greater risk? We are, for the first time in history, attempting to encode morality, or at least a decision-making framework for mortal danger, into machinery, and we're discovering, uncomfortably, that our own human morals are fuzzy, culturally dependent, deeply conflicted, and incredibly, perhaps impossibly, hard to translate into the clean, binary world of ones and zeros. And then there's us, the human factor. How do we, as fallible, emotional, distractible, and sometimes gloriously reckless drivers, coexist with these perfect, patient, unblinking students? Will we ever truly trust them? There's a powerful paradox at play here. The data, from millions of miles of testing, is starting to show that in many controlled and even complex situations, these AI drivers are already statistically safer than the average human. They don't get tired after a long day. They don't get road rage. They don't check a text message, ever. Their reaction time is measured in milliseconds, not the half second or more of a surprised human. But human psychology doesn't always follow statistics. A single, rare, tragic accident involving an autonomous vehicle makes global headlines for weeks. It is dissected, feared, and remembered. Meanwhile, the daily, grinding toll of human error, the tens of thousands of lives lost every year on American roads, becomes a sad, accepted background noise of modern life. Our trust is fragile, emotional. It is built painstakingly, mile by perfect mile, and it can be shattered by one single, heartbreaking mistake. Building that trust is perhaps the greatest engineering challenge of all, and it's not a software problem, it's a human one. So where's this all headed? Let's peer around the corner, into the near future. The trends are not pointing toward mere incremental improvement. They are pointing toward a fundamental transformation. A world that is not just assisted by artificial intelligence, but quietly, efficiently orchestrated by it. Imagine a city, maybe not in 50 years, but in 15, where self-driving cars don't just operate as isolated islands of intelligence. They move as a synchronized swarm, a flock of metal birds. They communicate with each other, vehicle to vehicle, in a constant, chattering radio dialogue, and breaking from changing lanes. They talk to the infrastructure of the smart traffic lights that dynamically adjust to flow, not a timer. The road sensors that detect black ice before the first car touches it. This interconnected dance, if perfected, could be so perfectly coordinated that traffic jams owes monuments to human reaction time lag and individual greed simply melt away. The red light, that classic source of frustration, could become a relic of a more chaotic, less efficient past. This isn't just a pleasant maybe. It's a concrete economic and urban planning prediction. Pilot projects for these smart cities are already being drawn up in tech hubs and forward-thinking municipalities across the country. The vehicle itself, the physical object, will transform from the inside out. Without the fundamental need for a steering wheel, pedals, or even a forward-facing seat, the interior becomes a blank canvas. It becomes a mobile living room for conversation, a private office for a focused hour of work, a pod for a nap, or a immersive entertainment chamber. The daily commute shifts from lost, stressful time to reclaimed, productive, or leisurely time. And the ripple effects of this are staggering, and will touch everything. What happens to drive-thrus when the car can't easily interface with a human cashier? What happens to gas stations when electric autonomous vehicles charge themselves at centralized depots at night? What happens to the entire multi-billion-dollar ecosystem of auto insurance, based on human risk profiles, when the primary driver is a nearly infallible algorithm? Entire industries, as stable as mountains for a century, will be reborn or will fade into history. But the prediction that really bends the mind, that stretches the fabric of what we think a machine is this. The line between the car and the computer will not just blur, it will vanish. The car won't just have an AI assistant like a fancy voice command system. It will be an AI, a mobile, physical intelligence with a primary purpose, to navigate the physical world in service of a human. It won't just passively take you from point A to point B because you told it to. It will know your schedule. It might suggest you have a meeting across town in 45 minutes. There is moderate traffic on your usual route. I suggest leaving now, and I can route you through the parkway for a calmer journey. It might learn your habits and say, we are passing within 300 meters of your grocery store. Your smart refrigerator indicates you are low on milk and eggs. Would you like to add a stop? It could even, one day, learn your preferences en route you past a stunning ocean vista at sunset because, in its analysis of your past reactions, it has learned that views like this improve your mood. It becomes more than a tool. It evolves into a partner in your daily life, an entity with context and foresight, and the underlying technology, that breathtaking ability to perceive, predict, and navigate complex physical environments will inevitably spawn new forms of life, mechanical life. The same principles are already being adapted. Think of robotic first responders that can navigate the unstable, treacherous rubble of a collapsed building, searching for heat signatures and sounds of life, going where no human rescuer can safely tread. Or consider autonomous construction vehicles, guided by this same breed of AI, building the first habitats on Mars, operating in concert across a dusty alien landscape, following blueprints beamed from Earth. The self-driving car is the training ground, the proving soil, for a whole future genus of embodied AI we stand. You and I, at a peculiar and unprecedented crossroads in our story as a species. We are the creators, the teachers, the regulators. We hold the blueprints and the rulebooks. But very soon we will transition into a new role. We will become the passengers. In giving up a certain kind of control, the visceral grip of the steering wheel, the pedal underfoot, we are aiming for a profound gain. A drastic reduction in the terrible arithmetic of road deaths, a leap in efficiency that unclogs the arteries of our cities, and a reclamation of our most precious non-renewable resource. The self-driving car, in the end, is more than a convenience, more than a technological marvel. It is a mirror. It reflects our deepest, most optimistic hopes for a safer, more efficient, more sustainable future. And with equal clarity, it reflects our most ancient, primal fears about handing over the reins, about trusting the unknown, about ceding authority to something we built but do not fully, intimately comprehend. You're not just looking at a machine following a map. You're looking at a pupil. It has watched us for hundreds of millions of miles.